Hey there, everybody. Well, let's get straight to it. I, like probably many of you Model S owners, I was going to say I was shocked and dismayed to find out that the Model X and Model S are being discontinued, but I wasn't really shocked. I kind of had a feeling that this was going to happen. And like a lot of people watching Tesla have thought for a couple years now that this was something that they were going to do, and I'll explain why. And it's not good. It's actually really it's really bad. But let's get there in our due time. But I was definitely dismayed because, to me, it basically confirms, if there was any doubt, that there's no real product planning that happens at that company, like none whatsoever. I think we kind of know that with the whole ridiculousness surrounding the Roadster 2.0 in particular. But even involving the semi-truck is sort of like, what year did the Semi and the Roadster were unveiled at the same time, and neither one of them is in any large numbers on the road. And it just, there's no growth, it doesn't seem like, in those programs. Maybe, I don't know. That's a whole nother side thing. Let's ignore that. When the Model S came out, I think the design was a lot of it was set before Elon kind of took the reins of the company. It's my impression anyway. And I think he was also, at that point, still more concerned about making sure that the company succeeded where so many other startup car companies had failed. And I think he probably was more prone to take advice from people who were experts in their field, and less prone to think that he was the smartest guy in every single room he walked into. And over the years, I think we've seen a number of instances where there's been this escalation in his pridefulness and as a result, his hubris, culminating in the spectacular sales of the Cybertruck and the design of the Cybertruck, and really anything surrounding the Cybertruck, including the reveal event and the weird everything associated with that monstrosity. But the Model S, the original Model S, this is a 2014, it won every single award there was to win. I mean, it got Motor Trend Car of the Year, it got Car and Driver Car of the Year, it was on the winner of the 10 Best, I think, a couple years running. I can't even remember all the accolades that this car got, because it basically got all of them. And that's kind of how I ended up in one, is because I had long ago as a kid told myself, and I think it was actually around the time that the original Miata came out, because I was a kid and I wasn't thinking about needing a family car. But I told myself, if ever there was a car that won every single award, which is what the original Miata did, it won every single award the year it came out, 1990, I think it was, or 89? 1990. I said, if a car ever wins every single award, I'm going to buy that car, because that's a consensus of opinion and expertise that I cannot deny that's got to be something worth having and experiencing. Now, that's not the only reason why we got the Model S, but it certainly was an echo that went back through my head, through my memory, of that promise that I had made myself years ago. Now, as a side note, I will say that my son now drives, I think it's a 2020 Miata RF. So it's kind of a joke that he's sort of like living the alternate timeline of, if I was good at math and I didn't get married and have kids as young as I did, that he's kind of on that path right now, because he's an engineer and he's got his Miata. Anyway, I'm amused by that. But the Model S was a great car, and it fundamentally changed the auto industry as we know it. Really, nobody was looking at making electric cars, not seriously. And really the biggest contender in that sort of space was the Toyota Prius. And it was seriously uncool and not compelling in any way. And then here comes this company with the Model S and makes what was, aptly described as a compelling electric car. And at least the very early demographics on the P85, the performance version of the Model S, there was a lot of overlap with Porsche 911 owners and P85s. And so I took that also into account as somebody who had spent a number of formative years in Stuttgart, and I still have a soft spot for Porsche, though they're not the everyman aspirational car they used to be. They're very, very expensive now. But that's a whole other thing. So here we had this car, and it just took everything by storm, and everybody was terrified of what that really meant, that this car was this kind of runaway success and winning every accolade there was, and it took years for there to be any kind of a response on the market from competing car companies, let alone anything that you would really seriously consider as comparable. I would argue that there really still isn't much out there that is really truly comparable. I know there's like the Lucid, and Lucid's got a number of issues that I've heard of, from its software integration to some of the other quality niggles, which Tesla has their quality issues too, to be fair. But the big thing for me is that the Lucid is just not as versatile as this. This big hatchback is. There just aren't a lot of cars like this. I mean, there's the Audi 5 Series. I think that BMW's got a 4. That's a hatchback. That's a 4-door hatchback. I can't remember. They used to. It's something, or I don't know. It was really ungainly, as I recall. But in a world that is moved away from station wagons and moved toward SUVs and crossovers, the fact that the Model S was a good-looking car, and a very good-looking car, in my opinion. It may not be breaking new ground, but as a cohesive design, it's very well proportioned, very well stanced, and all of that. And I think if you put, aside any bias people have about, a lot of things nowadays, it's an attractive car. But it also had that versatility of that giant hatch, and in the case of the rear-wheel drive cars like this one, there's a giant frunk up there as well. So as packaging and things like that, like, it's just so ahead of its time. That was a car that came out in 2012. 2026, as they finish production, they've made a lot of improvements and they've made a lot of changes, but the same basic structure of the car is the same. And in an industry where every 7 years you do a complete redesign, and halfway through that 7 years you do a mid-cycle refresh, kind of change the headlights and some trim things, maybe add some new colors, to kind of keep it fresh, Tesla has soldiered on and not done a darn thing. I mean, really, fundamentally, the platform is exactly the same. The Model X is its own basket of problems, and really the first sign of Elon's complete mismanagement and hubris, and the fact that they had to redesign the doors because he basically annoyed the company that was making the mechanisms for opening the doors, and that was one of the, if not the main reason, one of the main reasons why the Model X introduction got delayed a full year later than it was supposed to be. Should have seen that as a sign that this was a guy that wasn't so interested in making cars as he was in having a car company to play with. Anyway, it's a big toy to him. But by not improving and redesigning the Model S in particular, we see that this is a company that not only has bad management and poor product planning, they have no product planning. And I think that is really something that I have mentioned in other videos like this, other of these blogs. And it may sound like a familiar refrain, but they don't seem to understand that you have to constantly improve on a very foundational level the quality of your product. You can't just make iterations and slight improvements and running changes. That is not what the customer of cars, that's not what they want. And the fact that every other company does it a different way should kind of be a clue that you're doing it the wrong way. And I think what happened is that they basically got so distracted with screwing around with this stupid Cybertruck and Cybercab and whatever other, the Roadster, which is clearly on the top of the development tree, that they just neglected, just pure negligence on a management level. They just didn't come up with a plan. They didn't have any plan to redesign from the ground up the S and the X. And it got to a point where they also weren't really doing much to try and sell them, because they raised the price like $20,000 in a year. The current ones cost more than this one cost when this one was new, and that was when this was still kind of an exotic thing to buy. Model S nowadays should be somewhere in the 60s, maybe pushing 70 for a performance model. That's really where it should be priced to even have a chance. But they couldn't manage to do that, and they didn't come up with a plan to fix it or to do a full, clean sheet redesign on it with all of the things that they supposedly had been learning in the prior decade and a half worth of production. So when sales dropped because prices were high, demand was low, and all those things, the only option they had was to be like, oh yeah, we're just canceling that. But if a real car company were to do that, they would do it much earlier in the cycle, because they wouldn't bother making a product plan to replace it. The fact that they did it so late and so suddenly tells me, and should tell you, that there never was a plan to do a redesign of the Model S and the Model X. There's no prototype anywhere running around that is the next generation S or X. There's no platform being designed. There's no new pack technology. There's no new version of this car anywhere in development. They did a little bit of a refresh. They added some interior lights and a couple other little, they added a front bumper camera, a couple little things from Temu there, or maybe AliExpress, I don't know, it's hard to say. But they never had a real coherent plan to create a whole new generation of this car, and they got caught with their pants down and just decided, yeah, we're gonna make robots. We meant to do that. We're just gonna make robots. It's too late in the cycle. There should be several years of development already into the next generation of this car. Now here's where it's really concerning. The Model 3 and the Y got their mid-cycle refresh with the new fascias and interior a couple years ago. The Model Y in particular is what Tesla basically builds all over the globe at all the factories that they've been putting up, like in Berlin. Like, that's all they build. So they should be by now 1 or 2 years into a full generational redesign of the Model 3 and the Model Y. Right? I mean, that's how car companies work. That is what the market demands. That may not be what Elon demands, but that is what the market demands. And we've not seen any whiff of the next generation Model 3 using new structure, new chassis, new everything, or the Model Y. And you can say all you want, well, they don't have to do that because the cars are so good. That is not the winning formula for a company in a capitalist society where the consumer is in charge of what gets made, or I should say, what gets sold. So the fact that they didn't have a plan at all for Model S and X makes me think that they probably don't have a plan at all for 3 or Y. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end of Tesla. That's it. Finito. Or at least as a car company. And since most of their revenue comes from cars, you can only move those shells around so many times and buy out shares in here and merge with AI and SpaceX or whatever before it all comes tumbling down. And I think that we just saw the most obvious, largest crack in the end of Tesla. Time will tell.